You have to have honest, open conversations. And that's what I love about talking to Alex, because he's got that dialed in. And so I always think about my game plan before I go and talk to a younger client, so that I can find a way to connect, so that I can be of greater service to them. Because once everyone else understands what drives you, they will support you differently and enable you to succeed in many ways that you perhaps didn't even expect or realize.
Welcome to Counselor, Beyond Conventional Defense.
Hello and welcome to Counselor, Beyond Conventional Defense, the podcast that challenges the traditional approach to criminal defense and takes a deeper look at how the justice system can evolve, with attorney William Pernik, a trailblazer in criminal defense whose approach is anything but conventional. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and of course, I am joined by William Pernik. William, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So we heard Alex's story. It shows how personal experience shapes advocacy. How does your background inform the way you connect with your young client?
Kevin, I always believe in leaning on my own personal narrative in order to be able to connect and relate to my clients better. I think it's especially important when you're dealing with a younger client, because we know that adolescent brain is still developing well into someone's 20s. We know that younger clients are really susceptible to peer influences. We know that they tend to be more impulsive. We know that peer pressure is going to play a huge role. And so if you want to become a figure of some respect and authority in your client's life, you need to think very, very hard on how you are going to invest in your relationship with a young client so that they actually listen to you. Because if a mind is closed, nothing you say is going to work. And so I lean on my experience being an immigrant to this country. That's an experience that's shared by so many of my clients. I practice in Central Coast, California. I work in several rural counties. We also work in Santa Clara County. So we have a large population of clients who are immigrants from Mexico, immigrants from Central America, immigrants from Asia, and other places in the world, predominantly Hispanic. And so I found that my journey as an immigrant actually parallels in many, many ways the journey of many of my clients. But I had some advantages. We came here illegally. And so a lot of my clients who unfortunately do not have legal protection that me and my family enjoyed when we came here in mid-90s, they have additional layers of complexities, which is what Alex and I talked about. And so I lean onto my background as an immigrant in order to understand and appreciate what my clients go through. And also I share that with them, so they just don't see me as some, middle-aged white lawyer who is here to tell me what I should do after taking a bunch of money from my parents, but they see me as a person, as a human being, as somebody who was them one day, also making dumb choices and dumb decisions, and someone they like, somebody they can talk to, somebody that maybe they will laugh with and let down their guard with. I talk about bullying when I have a client who experienced bullying. Many of my clients who are in custody, who are younger clients, oftentimes gang members, have been victims of bullying. So I talk about how that affected me. Talk about peer pressure. Sometimes I give them examples of some things that happened to me that could have gotten me into some serious trouble. So I always think about my game plan before I go and talk to a younger client, so that I can find a way to connect, so that I can be of greater service to them if they like me, if they believe me, if they trust me and open up to me. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done with those of the clients whose lives were able to change.
Is there a story from your background that you would be able to share with us that kind of shows how it is for a young person to get in trouble, how easy it is for a young person to get in trouble?
My favorite story that I could tell is probably the Fed Boris story. Okay.
Fed Boris.
Fed Boris. So Fed Boris was a kid who was, I think, a year or maybe 2 years older than me. I came to the United States in mid-90s, and I ended up in a public school in San Francisco that had like 3,000 kids in it. Okay, it was like a human zoo. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Plus, I barely speak English. And so there was this kid who was older. He was, at that time, kind of a juvenile delinquent. He was getting in trouble. He would bully teachers. He would walk up to a window in the middle of biology class and light up a cigarette. He really didn't care if he was getting kicked out of class. I don't know what happened to him and why he was acting the way he was acting. Actually, today it'd be really interesting for me to find out a little bit more about him so I could understand it. But I remember when I was fresh off the boat, okay, in San Francisco, this guy comes up to me and he's basically asking me to go to an ATM machine with his ATM card. He would give me the card and the code, and I was to pull out some cash, bring it to him, and then he would give me, whatever, 20 or 40 bucks. And so I remember listening to this, and I just couldn't understand. Well, if it's so easy, why don't you just go
Why
to
do you
the
need
ATM
me?
machine yourself and
Mhm.
get the money out? And so, luckily, because I grew up in a family of teachers, because my parents were there for me in the previous 15 years of my life and hopefully instilled some sense and values and things of that nature, I had the good sense of turning that proposition away, and not going to the ATM machine with what I'm sure was a stolen ATM card belonging to somebody else and pulling out money. Had I done that, I would have been charged with a commercial burglary, depending on how many times I've done this. I could have been charged with multiple burglaries. I would have ended up in juvenile hall. It could have really affected the trajectory of my life. And luckily, I had that voice in the back of my head that warned me, William, this is probably not a good idea. If
Doesn't
this was
feel
legal,
right.
if this was legal and appropriate, he would do it himself and not have to pay you $20 or $40 to do it. But you know, I'm sure he found somebody else who did it. And because I said no, it caused me some issues down the road, a little bit of kind of posturing and bullying and things of that nature. It went away as we got older, and I ran into the gentleman a couple of years after graduating high school. But it's a really good example of how a kid could very easily get in trouble. If I didn't have some of the things that I was taught in my past, I could have very easily taken 20 bucks from Fed Boris and got myself into juvenile hall, but I didn't. True story.
Fat Boris is making me laugh. I don't know why, but yeah, that's
You- you-
interesting though, because like you said, I mean, like
Why do
you
you
had
need?
that
Why do you
the
need?
little angel on your shoulder or whatever you want to say, the voice in your head saying like, "This doesn't feel right, man. Don't do this. Don't do this."
and that's really uncommon for younger people
I
because we
agree.
know from research that young brains are not fully developed. And in particular, the part of a brain that is responsible for these types of decisions, is the prefrontal cortex. That's the portion of our brain that's responsible for decision making, impulse control, and really foreseeing consequences. And that doesn't fully mature until, frankly, mid 20s. And as a result of this immaturity, we have a lot of younger clients who are using poor judgment, poor risk assessment, and they sometimes regulate their emotions poorly. That's why they're so eager to jump into the fight when they shouldn't. And a lot of times, in order to fit in, they will say, screw it, I'm badass, I'll do it. Anything you ask me, oh, great, Fed Boris, the bad boy, of the local school. If you need it, I'm there. I'll do it for you. And I wasn't into it, but I'm sure there are some rewards that come from having that kind of relationship. Maybe now you get invited to parties you otherwise wouldn't be invited to. Maybe now you can get alcohol. Maybe now you can get some pot, other things of that nature. Again, a lot of kids have a hard time saying no. That's one of the examples in my life that I sometimes think about when I look at stupid things my young clients do. True story.
I think it's probably easy to get frustrated with young clients because they might seem uncooperative or shut down. How do you navigate that?
I have a hard time with that. And that's what I talked to Alex about. I try not to take it out on the client. And I always try
Sure.
to tell myself, okay, William, just remember you're dealing with a 20-year-old. Remember what you were like when you were 20. Please remember his brain is not fully developed. This is completely normal for his age. You have to come up with a different way and a different strategy in order to reach him. There are professionals who are able to connect and reach out to younger clients. What is it that they're doing that makes them successful where you're failing? So I try to look at it from the perspective of, okay, if I have not been successful in making that connection, what else can I do in order to achieve it, as opposed to just get frustrated? We're all human beings. And of course, it's very, very difficult when you're trying to convince somebody to do the right thing. You actually do it from a good point in your heart, as opposed to just wanting to close down the case and move on. And, the legal advisor in their cell tells them not to do it and is contrary to their best legal interest, it can be really, really frustrating. And that's why you have to have honest, open conversations. And that's what I loved about talking to Alex, because he's got that dialed in and he's got a phenomenal personal story. He's a hilarious character himself. And so I think when clients meet him and talk to him, and he really shows them that he's there for them, he cares for them, he wants the best for them, not just because mom and dad paid him some money. I think that works. And that's what I tried to do. And I had Alex's voice in my head after the recording session that we had. And I took some pointers from what he was saying.
Racial bias obviously compounds the challenges that go along here. How do you address it when a young client of color internalizes the system's narrative about them?
That's a great question. And I think what I see most commonly is that you have these young people who are very genuine in many, many ways. Just because they got in trouble or used bad judgment or were impulsive doesn't mean they're deaf or blind to the injustice all around them. They feel it extremely acutely. They internalize it a lot. And oftentimes, what I have from younger clients is I will have a young client who basically says, you know what, man, the system is rigged, the judge is biased, the racist, the cops are always going to follow me. So they give up. They basically say the game is rigged, therefore I refuse to play. It can be very frustrating if you take it at face value, but I don't. I actually do something very similar to what Alex suggested. He just had a really funny way of describing it to a client. And what Alex said is he shares his personal background, he connects with the younger client, and then he basically says, look, you don't stop playing the game just because it's rigged. The way you win at it is you become a playable character. And I think considering we have a population of younger people who all play video games, I think
Absolutely.
that really resonates. So I really love that line from him. And I actually borrowed it. And of course, I'm now using it in the interview with you. But I think it makes total sense. And I think that's a really great way to explain to a client why, in order for you to succeed where you and others like you previously failed, you have to use that approach. If you educate yourself, if you reclaim some of the power that has been taken away from you, if you are smart in how you are approaching your police interaction, you can beat them at this game. You can win. You can prevent them from forcing you to lose. You can deny them the opportunity to marginalize you, to incarcerate you, to define you. You can take control of your own narrative and prove everybody else wrong. And I think that's really something that younger people need to hear, and it works really well. So Alex brilliantly called it becoming a playable character in this game of life, if you will. And I think younger people like it. They understand it.
Yeah, I like that too. Playable character. That's really cool. And also, I mean, honestly, like when you do succumb like that, you kind of are playing. You're just playing right along with what the system thinks you should be, right? You know, you're playing along. You're playing that part of being the bad person, just like the system sort of just keeps perpetuating. So yeah,
Do
it's an
you
interesting one.
do you want to allow your probation officer, your prosecutor, or your judge to label you, or a police officer who arrested you at 3 a.m, okay, when you were just hanging out with your friends outside of Jack in a Box, smoking some weed in the car? Do you want to be defined by the worst moment of your life? Do you want them to tell an entire story of who you are based on that one experience? Or do you want to reclaim your narrative and tell your own story? Isn't that much more empowering? Why would you let them win? If you forfeit, if you refuse to play, they win by default.
Right.
Don't give it to them for free. Don't make
Right.
their life easier. Did they make your life easier when they were searching you on the road, in the cold at 3 a.m? No, they didn't. Don't make their life easier. Fight for your freedom. All the things that are worth having in life are worth fighting for. And I want to inspire people to do that. And I think when you do that, every once in a while, it's pretty cool to watch the light bulb go off.
Yeah, I'll bet. Alex's journey proves that one advocate can change trajectories. What's your vision for expanding this model with, burning out defenders?
For me personally, for close friends of mine who work in the criminal defense sector, humor has always been really great mechanism to cope with stress. Defense attorneys sometimes have dark humor. We call it gallows humor. But being able to laugh and joke at really horrible things that happen all around us is one defense mechanism that a lot of lawyers use. So I think what's really important for me, and I think could be important for others, is to use humor as a coping mechanism. Sometimes the most serious things in life, you need to be able to laugh at and shake your head at, because if you don't, you just want to bury yourself in a hole and cry. And you don't want to do that because you have lives that you're responsible for. So for me, humor, sometimes dark humor, sometimes gallows humor, that's something that me and my friends have relied on to get us through the darkest times. I also think it's incredibly important to have a strong support foundation, be that your spouse, your significant other, your family, sometimes your colleagues, if you work in a good office, like I had the privilege when I just started out. Whatever your support foundation is, I think they play a really huge role in keeping you leveled and preventing you from burning out or doing things that are detrimental to your own health and well-being. I think it's also very important, and something that I was able to finally do recently, is you need to make your vision clear. I think you need to make your vision of who you are, what you are about, what your mission in life is, crystal clear to everybody around you, so that when people know why you're doing this, they understand it and they can support it. This job requires tremendous amount of investment from the attorney in order to do it the way I'm trying to convince people to do it. It can hurt you and burn you out if you're not careful. So you have to tell everybody around you why you're doing it, what your mission is about, and what will success look like, and why you're doing it for so many other people. Because once everyone else understands what drives you, they will support you differently and enable you to succeed in many ways that you perhaps didn't even expect or realize. I am very blessed to have the success that I have had. It would not have been possible without the support of my family, my wife, my close friends, my parents, and sometimes my clients and their families. And so I encourage everybody else to invest in building these types of relationships, because if you go at it alone, it could be a really difficult, soul-sucking, crushing experience, because you need somebody there in those moments when it gets dark. I think obviously some self-care is also important. I personally have neglected it for a long period of time. I was just so singularly focused on working for everyone else that I neglected a lot of things that affected me personally, my family, my health, my mental health. And it wasn't until a personal loss that I referenced in the beginning of the show, until a friend of mine passed away, and I saw how everything he worked so hard to build just no longer mattered because he was gone, and I didn't want that to happen to me anymore. So in many ways, when I sat down to record this show, his experience was very much at the front of my mind. And I was thinking that, unless I take steps to protect myself, that could be me. And I don't want that to happen, because I have too many people who count on me and depend on me. And I need to be there for my friends, for my son, for my wife, for my parents, for everybody else in my family, and for hundreds of my clients who need somebody like me to help guide them out of darkness into the light. And so I'm trying to be healthier mentally and physically in order to be better at what I do. But I think it's something that's not addressed enough in our profession. When I was younger and I would go to seminars, the one lecture I would always run away from when I was younger would be like the attorney, well-being lecture. I was like, I'm in my 20s. I don't need it. I'm strong. I'm healthy. I'm of sound mind. I'm fit. And 20 years later, you begin to feel the impact of everyone else's tragedies that builds up in you and in your system. And that could take a toll on a person. So I really think that attorneys need to be more mindful of the way that their work affects them, so that we could do more for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to Counselor Beyond Conventional Defense with attorney William Pernik. To connect with William and his team, head to perniklaw.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like on this video. We love having you here. William, thanks so much for your time. Great chatting with you.
It's a pleasure, Kevin, as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.